put on my professional hat.
Yeah, that's it. You guys are at YouTube, like,
So,
first
you
two
have that.
Yeah, probably like maybe the fourth or fifth, or fifth.
Stephanie seems like the third person.
Alrighty.
He's always around.
I'm always like fourth or fifth. Do it.
No, I don't want to go through OneDrive to get
I'm trying to read everyone's. And anyways, I'll post it on link until like Sunday night. Yeah, I'm already working on that assignment. Then I was like, oh, never mind then.
Alrighty, so how's everybody doing on that? Whoa, you guys are very close, Winter Rock. I can see Winter Rock, literally. It's just, oh, there I am. I'm there.
Either Thursday or Friday morning.
So when you got a new class?
Let's hope it's working tonight. It tends to kick me off, which I'm hoping it doesn't. Who's getting? Ah, it still keeps doing that. Why do you do this to me? Why do you hate me? Why? And there's a baby. There's always a baby. There's always going to be a baby, Ryan. No. So,
Yeah, to take sociology. Get SSH.
still doing it.
Second stage, so all you can do is test and quizzes. That's all you can do. You have to
Going through the text?
yeah.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
This quiz is like 5. Not bad. But you have to do, it's
What
not like
just
straightforward
happened?
answers. To think critical and use all your knowledge.
Everything you learned out.
Yeah.
This is Jeremiah, room 102. My blackboard just went off. Or not blackboard, but ITV went off. Okay.
Presently, looking at me like ready for
Break.
shit. I'm not gonna relax. I got a whole lot of stuff to do. Preparing for summer again. Gotta make sure all the weeds get laid out before. It sucks when the neighbor doesn't cut his weeds down. Like when they're barely starting, remember how they're really sprouted? Tell him to keep cutting it, and it doesn't. Sometimes summertime rolls around, all the mosquitoes and everything right by his house. It's like, ah, god damn it.
Yeah.
Walk outside and I hear right by your ear. Like,
How the round rock said.
9:10. It started, it was showing, and then
It's
something
dry.
shut off.
Our closest neighbors, good 300 yards.
It's, what do you mean?
300 yards.
So you don't have to worry about that.
The name on
Yeah.
what?
Well, they're my relatives too.
So you
Jeremiah,
don't have to worry
Barbara.
about that.
But that's
Room
it.
102,
And the rest are like
in
not
AC.
far.
Oh, yeah. Dang, my brother hit it. I told you that my brother hit the dog.
Yeah.
I thought it was up top of that hill where he come on. Around that curve.
Yes.
Hill, and you make it out of the car. Yeah. Top of there. I thought it was right there where you hit the dog, but I guess it was further down past Rock Point.
Are you right there? Where you went up?
Yeah.
To round up? Or this my house?
Yeah.
Right
We
there.
posted before. I was like, oh shit.
Stuck me.
Hey. But he told us in high school.
Okay.
He told Elvin, Zach,
Thanks.
Dominic and I.
Okay, so she said she's gonna reconnect it. And
Several years.
so now I'm realizing I really don't like ITV. That's what I'm coming to realize. And I'm on camera saying that. So, yeah, there's that. I had such amazing PowerPoints too. I always think I have amazing PowerPoints, but I act like as though this has some kind of power to it. I don't know. All right, yay, you guys are back on. Awesome. Now let's try this again. Let's see if it works. Show content. Should be able to see that, yes.
Didn't know nobody in real time.
Why is it not connecting? Okay, now that's concerning.
I like their coffee when it's freshly brewed. I like their coffee when it's freshly brewed.
Let's see. It's on this
Does
side.
it feel better? Tea? Alright, is that just settle easy?
I like tea.
You like tea?
Yeah.
I have a lot of tea too. I
I
like
like drink coffee alone.
it. Oh, really? What's it called? We have that orange citrus, I think what it's called. Or orange citrus tea.
Very cool, no? Hold on.
They fill it for you?
Huh?
They fill it for you?
No, I don't get tea over here. I'll bring it from home.
Computer. Okay, there it is. So now. Alrighty. Now I don't need that. Need that. Alrighty. Hopefully it does not shut off. Please stay on. Please. Don't want to see me. Don't shut off. Don't shut off. Don't shut off. Don't shut off. Stay on, stay on, stay on. This happened to me yesterday. And the day before. At this point, I don't like ITV. I really don't. It's not fun. Hello, yes, it keeps shutting off my PowerPoints. Can you reset it again? Alright, thanks. So during that time when it resets, I am going to grab my latte.
And you did the discussion first, right?
No, not yet. You turned on his with me.
I did as well.
Did it reset? No?
Nope.
They're not, it's not the person that's in the main building thing, which is, let's see what happened, okay. I miss the good old days. That's what I think. Okay, so we're just gonna begin. So how many had any issues with the assignment? With discussion questions? Discussion question. Or how many were okay with it? Who remembers what the discussion question was? The discussion question was on what?
ADHD.
ADHD, right? Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So within that, how many had any issues in terms of finding it in the book? Or none. None whatsoever. Everybody was just, you guys are so chatty when you guys aren't looking at stuff. So, Oh, this thing is bugging me. Did I just unplug something?
I thought the last discussion was a little bit difficult.
Okay, so what was the last discussion? The last discussion, what were we looking at? What were we looking at? So the last discussion, we didn't really have anything to go off of, right?
Yeah.
You primarily were just going off of PowerPoints. Within that, we didn't meet. So the last discussion, let me pull it up. What was the last discussion? Let me see, hold on. 240. See what was on here? Let me see.
Child amnesia?
Yeah, something like that.
Infant amnesia.
Mental amnesia? Yeah, remembering?
Yeah, it was that.
Yeah.
Alright, let me pull it up real quick.
How does it relate to malformation and everything?
Yeah.
Everything's a traumatic. I stated everything's a traumatic event. That's good.
Oh, this is week 7. I don't have week 7. Okay, so the last time we looked at poverty, we were looking at poverty and how it impacts the child's mind. So one, I wanted you to read an article. So the article primarily looked at the child mind in regards to poverty, and you realize that within the article you're looking at the impacts of poverty and how it can be implemented within a child's daily interaction. So do you see that as traumatic or do you not see that as traumatic?
Traumatic.
Being poor?
Traumatic.
Being poor?
Yeah, it's traumatic.
So one of the things is if you look at Navajo Nation, you have tourists that come out through the Navajo Nation and they're looking at all of the given outlooks out here. You see individuals living in double wide trailers, you see them living in single wide trailers, you see them living in tiny, they don't even know what that is, but we know that those are hogans. And so they see that they're made out of what? Mud, everything else. And so as they're coming out, what do you think their interpretation is of the Navajo Nation? Very poor, right? But where did the poor concept come from? Where did it actually originate? Where does the concept of being poor originate from? It's more of a Western concept, right? Because now I'm noticing most of the brands on everybody. We have Hurley, we have what else? We have Nike, we have even on our jackets, if we're part of a rodeo association, we have brands that sponsor us, and we have all these different aspects. And so as we're going along, what happens? Our interpretation of who we are and what we were at a given time changes. So then the concept of being poor now suddenly is a part of our everyday lives. We're looking, okay, if I don't have such and such, I am now poor. If I go to high school, how many went to high school and you were okay with the clothes that you were wearing? Or how many were, you look at it and say, you know what, no, I was going to throw a fit. I've already seen the reactions of some individuals. Back in the day, we used to wear, let's see, high school, it's even younger, elementary. We had what were called Jinko jeans. I don't know if you guys remember that. You guys are probably too young for that. But Jinko jeans were jeans that were they were oversized. So if you guys remember, how many remember Jinko jeans on that side? Nobody? Everybody's like so young, you're like, no, I don't even know what that is. So Jinko jeans were ridiculously huge pants. So the bottom of it was about that huge. And it just came all the way up. And you were looking like, that's a lot of fabric. That's like literally 4 or 5 pairs of jeans. So these jeans were how much? How much do you think they were? 110, 120, within that price range. But now, how many know what Gucci is? The brand Gucci, not, oh my goodness, that's so Gucci. No. So how many know what Prada is? No. How many know, let's see, what else is there? What other brands are there? There's a ton of brands. But what happened to us as time progressed? We became, and I have a colleague on the right next door who deals in the area of marketing. And so within that, he's always talking about brand recognition. So brand recognition would be what? If you notice, I don't wear any brands because all of my stuff is stuff that I'm not a big brand person. So within that, that's one of the big things. But as time progresses, what happens? Our interpretation of reality changes, of the given reality. So the aspect of poverty becomes a concept that we now incorporate. So if, say for example, if you're working with schools, you have programs that are under the assisted program. Children who get government clothing. And so I was working with a school that the government clothing that they would get was actually pretty nice. You had a lot of Under Armour, you had a lot of the more fancier brands. But if you remember, if you were back in my generation, if you were using government clothing, what would happen? It would laugh at you, thinking, oh, you know what, that's that individual, they're wearing this, this, and this. But as time progressed, what happened? We tried to make sure everything was accessible to all individuals. So that's one of the big things we begin to understand is the aspect and the concept of poverty changes. So now, how many go into your own pantry right now and you look in your own pantry and you're like, yeah, I have nothing to eat? How many can actually say that? And say, you look in your own pantry, you look in your own kitchen, you look in there and you're like, I have nothing to eat. I wonder if the sub is open. And you look at your, I want to say Lobo card because I'm a UNM, I'm a former alumni of a UNM. But for ours, we had Lobo cards, and when we used to swipe that for food. We'd go down to the sub, whatever, and you had all the food there. But you guys have what, warrior cards? Is that what it is, warrior cards? So the warrior cards, what do you put on there? Money, right? So you go anywhere, you kind of just, and I see a lot of students do that, they kind of just whip it out, like as though it's a credit card. They kind of flash it around. They'll swipe it, and I'm thinking, oh, that's adorable. It's cute. It's adorable. It's just, it's so cute. I know I'm knocking you guys out. You guys are like, oh, he's laughing at us. No, I'm not laughing at you. I did that back in the day too. So one of the things is, when you look in your own pantry, can you make the food in there? Yeah, most of the time. Most individuals can look in their own kitchen and look in their own pantry and say, yes, there is food in there, but most individuals will look in there and say, no, there's no food. So what type of food are we looking at? What kind of food? So what kind of food are we looking at on this side? On the Window Rock, Crown Point, Chinle, Shiprock. What kind of food are we primarily looking at when we look in our own pantry and we're like, there's no food? What are we always looking at? What are we primarily looking for?
Treats.
Treats, right? And that's one of the big things is, and you were talking earlier about children, and you notice that the pictures don't coincide with what? Our culture. Because our culture, we have a lot of kids, and one of the big things is they're a lot what? It's okay, we can say it. Chunkier, a lot larger. Sometimes we're like, I don't want to offend anybody. Again, that's the reality, is we realize that the children are a little more portly. And so when that happens, what happens as the society continues? We want to make sure that they get the benefit of the treats, right? And we noticed that, and I talked about that, I think it was like 2 classes ago, we were talking about poverty levels. And if you come from a more poor society, you value sweets more than actual nutritious food. And so then obesity rates rise. So within that, why? Why do you think that rises? Why do you think obesity rates rise amongst those that are of low income? So how many go to Burger King often? It's okay, I do too. So when you go to Burger King, why do you go to Burger King? Is it because it is so nutritious and is the most amazing meal you ever get? Why do you go to Burger King?
Quick.
Quick.
Affordable.
It's affordable, right? You can get a couple Whoppers for whatever. They have the 3 for or 2 for $6 deal or whatever. And they do all these different promotionals and everything else. And so you go there. So if you're, say for example, you're helping a mother who is of a low income, and when that happens, how much is a healthier meal? If you go to Bash's, if you say for example, how much are bananas right now? Are they pricey? They're not that much, right? Now go for strawberries. Who likes strawberries? How much are strawberries now?
Almost five.
For a small little cart, right? And now you go for the salad. You want a good sized salad. You're looking for iceberg salad. You're looking for all the different types of salad. And so when you're looking at that, what happens? Price what?
Jumps.
Starts jumping. Starts jumping. Starts jumping. Starts jumping. All the way to the point, by the time you are ready to check out, it's so high. So if a mother's of a low income, if they're working all day, and we'll go into that eventually. So if a mother's of a low income working all day, which option do you think she's going to choose?
Least expensive.
The least expensive and the least time, right? And so within that, that's going to be the more unhealthier choices. And so that's one of the things that happens is if they're of a lower income. So notice that it's one of those, it's a catch-22, right? It's almost like, say for example, I'll give you this example. When I used to work with inmates, they used to release them. They used to release them early. Why? Why do you think they release them early? And there's a whole study behind it and everything else, but why do you think they release them early? How many know? I'm talking like, I forget, you guys are on that side, so you guys can still see me good. So, why do you think they released them early? I want to see if it works this time. Why do you think they want to release inmates early?
They don't have to feed them?
They don't have to feed them? That can be one option, yeah. So the reason why they release them early is because they know they're going to commit the same crime. And they can implement a longer sentence.
Damn.
So when you think about it, you're thinking they're not really there to allow people to succeed. And when you look at society and everything else, you realize a lot of times that's where individuals get caught in. They want to succeed, but a lot of times they're caught in a unique cycle. And so for our job, when we educate, one of the big things we're always trying to do is allow individuals to break that initial cycle. So if you look up here, you have middle childhood growth. If you look at middle childhood, it's a time of life when people are most likely to be pretty slim. So how many can actually look back and think, yeah, that was a good time for me. That was awesome. Oh my goodness, I was so slim back then. And people are like, you ate whatever you could. How many remember that? You could stay up all night. Well, you couldn't actually, but you tried to. And you had sleepovers, and you had all these different things, but you ate so much junk food, and it didn't affect you. Next day, you're like, okay, let's do it again, round 2. Because one of the big things is, and that's what you were marveling at, is the fact that today's generation has changed. The values have changed. So if you notice, the brand recognition goes across the board. So this little tiny brand right here, all of us have it at some point. We know what it is. You show this to a child, what are they going to do? They incorporate that. They're thinking, oh, okay, that's what that is. And I'll only buy from that. And so as time progresses, that's one of the big things we're looking at is the impact that we can have on children. So now, physical growth. So now, okay, now it's actually working. Yay. It just needs time to warm up. I don't know why. It does this to me every time. So, One of the biggest things is we look at height and growth, and we look at weight. So growth in the height range will initially, what? So growth in height and weight during middle school slows considerably. So from childhood, what happens? They shoot. From the time they're born, boom. And then they get into the middle childhood range. And when that happens, what happens? Everything kind of slows down. So the body's failure to produce enough growth hormone leads to growth deficiencies. So that's one of the big things we're always looking at is what is healthy. So what is your concept of healthy? What is your outlook of healthy overall? What does healthy look like to you? What do you think it looks like? What's your concept of healthy? How about out there in Tuba City? What's your concept of healthy as I stare at a wall or a corner? What is your idea of healthy?
Fresh vegetables?
Fresh vegetables, okay. So for a child, what do you think what is healthy to you? Not so much the food, but more along the lines of physicality. What is healthy to you? What do you think it looks like?
Somebody who's active.
Somebody who's active? But in today's generation, do we see a lot of activity? We are doing away with PE programs.